Hello everyone, today we'll start with exercise 6.1 Ncert squares and square root. The first very three question of this exercise is completely on properties of square numbers which we have learned in our previous video. Therefore, I want you all to start with this exercise. You first recap or review all the properties of square number, after which this exercise itself will become very easy. These first three questions will become very easy for you all to go through. So here, the very first question says, what will be the unit digit of squares of following numbers? What will be the unit digit of squares of following numbers? If we do the squares of these numbers, then what will be the unit digit? The number which we obtain will have which digit at its units place, right? So, for this, do you really think we need to solve 55,555 times 55,558? It is very, very hectic. For this, we'll simply use a trick. And trick we have already learned in our previous video, properties of square numbers. The very first property in that says that if any number ends with 1 or 9, any number which ends with 1 or 9, square of them will end with 1, or it has 1 at its unit place. If any number ends with 2 or 8 at its unit place, square of that number will end with 4, or it has 4 at its unit place. Any number which ends with 3 or 7, the square of that particular number will always ends with 9 or has 9 at its unit place. Any number which ends with 4 or 6 has 6 at its unit place. Any number which ends with 5, square of that number will end with 5. Any number which has 0 at its end, the square of that number will also end with 0, but number of zeros will be double the actual number in the given question. Okay? So, review it again to have better understanding of question 1, 2 and 3 of the exercise 6.1. Go through the properties of square numbers which we have already discussed in our previous video to solve the question 1, 2, 3 in better way. So, for your reference, I have rewrite this property which is used in this question, and the property goes like this. Any number ending with 1 or 9, the square of that number ends with 1. Any number ending with 2 or 8, the square of that number ends with 4. Any number end with 3 or 7, the square of that particular number ends with 9. Any number which ends with 4 or 6, the square of that particular number ends with 6. Any number which ends with 5, square of that number also ends with 5. Any number which ends with 0, the square of that number also ends with 0. But, one thing to take care, the number of zeros will be double. So there will be always even number of zeros at the end. I am specifying the number of zeros because there is a clause or a clue that if there are odd number of zeros in the square numbers, then it is not a perfect square. We have already discussed in a previous video. Therefore, I am specifying that there will be double the number of zeros which are given in the number, and the number ends with 0, right? So, quickly going through it, 81, it will end with, the square of this number ends with 1. 272. 2. The square of this number ends with 4. 9. The square of this number ends with 1. 3. The square of this number ends with 9. You look at the units place. Look at the units place number. The units place number is 4. The square of this number will end with 6. Look at the units place number 7. The square of this number ends with 9. Look at the number 8, which is at units place. So the square of this number will end with 4. 0 will end with zeros, but how many zeros will be there in total? 2. 1. 12,796 ends with 6. Therefore, the square will also end with 6. 55,525 ends with 5. Therefore, the square will also end with 5. Now, how to write it? This is for your explanation, but the way of representing your answer goes like this way. Solution. Simply you need to write square of 81 have 1 at its units place. First one. Second one, 272 square have 4 at its units place. Third, 799 have 1 at its units place. Square of 3,853 have 9 at its units place. 1,234 have 6 at its units place. Now you have to write further. For sixth part, 26,387 will have 9 at its unit place. 52,698 has 4 at its units place. 99,880 has 0 at its unit place. 12,796 square has 6 at its units place. 55,555 square has 5 at its units place. So this is the solution to question 1 of NCERT exercise 6.1 squares and square root. The exercise first 3 questions is completely based on properties of square numbers. Therefore, I suggest you, before going through the first 3 questions, please go through our video properties of square numbers. So now begin with question number 2. Question number 2 says, following numbers are obviously not perfect square. Give reason. So the question says that they are not perfect square and you have to give reason to support the answer. To do this question, I would like you all to recall one of the property which we discussed in properties of square roots, that any square number or any number ending with 2 ending with 3, ending with 7, ending with 8, or odd number of zeros. Can never be perfect square. So which numbers can never be perfect square? Any number which either ends with 2, ends with 3, ends with 7, ends with 8, or has zeros at its unit place, but the number of zeros are odd. So these are the 5 things which we have to look upon in any number, and if any one of them meets the criteria, we will say that they are not perfect square. So for this question, coming to the first part, the number 1057 ends with 7, right? So we know, we learned the property that it cannot be a perfect square. For second part, 23,453 ends with 3. As I said earlier, 2, 3, 7, 8 or odd number of zeros. Third is 8, again the same. Fourth is 2, again the same. Fifth, it is ending with 0, but number of zeros, count number of zeros in it. And we will see that there are 3 zeros. Since there are 3 zeros and these are odd number of zeros present in the number, therefore it cannot be a perfect square. Sixth part, again ending with 2. Seventh part, again ending with 0, but number of zeros are odd, right? So therefore it cannot be perfect square. And the last 8th part is 505050. It ends with 0, but how many zeros does it have? It has only 1 0 at the end, which is also an odd number. Therefore these 8 numbers which are given to us are not perfect squares. How to write your answer for this? What will be the solution? How will you write that? How will you represent your answer, right? So following numbers are not perfect square. Give reason. 1057 is not a perfect square as it has 7 at its units place. Simple. Nothing to describe more. Second, 2, 3, 4, 5, 3 is not a perfect square. Why it is not a perfect square? As it has 3 at its unit place. You don't need to describe over there 2, 3, 7, 8 or odd number of zeros. No. You simply write because 3 is its at units place. Similarly, for third part, 7928. You will simply say it is not a perfect square. Why it is not a perfect square? Because it has 8 at its unit place. This is 2,22,222. It is not perfect square because it has 2 at its units place. 64,000, it is not perfect square because it has odd number of zeros at the end. Say, because it has odd number of zeros at end. 89722 because it has 2 at its unit place. For this, again you will say it has odd number of zeros at the end. And for this you will say it has odd number of zeros at the end. So this is the solution to question number 2 of exercise 6.1 squares and square root. So now question number 3, exercise 6.1 squares and square root. Question number 3 says the square of which of the following would be odd number. So for this you don't need to solve, you only need to describe you only need to just use the property and conclude which of them will have odd square numbers. So to solve this question, I would like you all to revise one of the property which we read in properties of square root. In properties of square number, and the properties goes like this: square of even number is even. Square of odd number is odd. Very simple property which we need to use in this question. So among these four, which of them will have their squares as odd number? So coming to the first part is 431. 431 is odd number? Yes, it is odd number. So what will be its square? Odd. Second part, 2826. It has 6 at its unit place. It is even number. Therefore, it will not have its square as odd number. Even will have even square. So this is not the odd number, therefore its square will not be odd. Third, 7779. We can see that 7779 has 9 at its unit place, and therefore it is not even number, it is odd number. Therefore the square of odd number is odd. And the fourth part, 82,004. We can see that this is even number because it ends with 4, and hence it is even number, therefore its square will also be even. So among these four, there are two numbers. First is 431, which is odd, and third part, which is 7779, which is also odd. Therefore their squares will be odd numbers. So according to the question, the squares of which of the following would be odd number? So solution to them is, how we will write? We will write in this way: 431 square is odd number. Simple. Why it is odd number? Because 431 is odd. 226 square is not odd number. Why it is not odd number? Because 2826 itself is even number. If there is even number, square is even. Third part, 7779 square is odd number. Why? Because it itself is odd number. And the last part, 82,004 is not odd number. Why it is not odd number? Because the number 82,004 is even number. And hence, this is the solution to question 3 of exercise 6.1 NCERT, squares and square root.